Good evening, everybody. Welcome to day 4 of 5 of the MPS 2021 talk series. And talk number 1 will be by Alex Samier. Please notice I did pronounce your French name. He also mentioned that he shaved specifically for us, so please everybody appreciate that as well. And he's going to talk, thank you, he's going to talk about the system that SIGI has been building with MPS, and it's basically administrative software that's going to be used by a whole country.
Exactly.
And he's going to, yes, important. And so please take it away.
Hello. So today it's a talk about building a language for municipalities, and as Marcus said, it will be for an entire country. So I'm not disclosing the name of the country now, but I think you will guess it with the presentation. So as a nicely prepared presentation, we have a table of contents. So we will overview the SIGI, so the company, see how we try to tackle the problems with an ERP approach. Then how we move to the SIGI Nova, that's the name of our solution. Then of course we are going to put the hands in the language. Then a surprise slide and lessons learned and the next steps. So I will start directly with the history of the SIGI. So SIGI is an association of municipalities and syndicates and social offices, and we delivered solution to the administration in Luxembourg. We have doing this for almost 40 years, and we support the citizen, the municipalities, and the childcare institutions, social offices, syndicates, all of the public administration in their missions toward the citizens. These missions are very various. We have to help them with a wide variety of them, like administration or maintenance, water supply, waste management, and so on, and so on, and so on. So from this, you can guess that these missions, even if there are something common, it's that it's the communal missions. They are somehow very, very different because you cannot like do the urban planning or permits just the same as you do the water supply. So as we have to build a solution that is matching all these needs, this brings a certain level of complexity. Moreover, we also have variety of users. We have to address the needs of the civil servants who want an efficient program to be able to do their daily tasks. The elected officer who are more interested in facts like KPI and reportings and something to see how the city is going, depending on the city side or the democratic footprint or the urban footprint or the social development. Then we have this maintenance staff people that need to be able to have some things to do and some missions to fulfill. And of course, the citizen of the communes that we have to ease the communication and everything that the municipalities provide them. So to cope with it, at first we develop an ERP. This is like a screenshot of the ERP, how it looks like. And this ERP, you can see there are like somehow a lot of buttons everywhere because it is like historical. It started with less communes, and then the complexity went bigger, and every communes wanted to have specifications, and this specification were like a bit different from the others, so they cannot be put like in something very, very have the same process for all of them. So we had to add a new button for new features, for a new customization, a new whatever. And this application became more and more complex, and it couldn't cope anymore with the variety of the business needs and the business processes. This also made that it was more like ruled by the IT people who were developing it than by the actual business needs. And it was difficult and inefficient, like the user experience was a bit inefficient. And in the end, like we noticed that the people, they were not actually learning the business that they were like that their actual business, but they were learning how to use the tool. This complexity was like exponential, of course, because the more you put and the more things gets complicated, and when you try to fix something somewhere, then you are often breaking something somewhere else, because it's not only doing like population, but it was doing everything of the different communal missions, from finance to population to budget to anything that the municipalities need. Then, so this is like a summary, and we have this monolithic application would become very complicated for the digitalization. And at some point, one guy, the director actually, he came with an idea. He said, when I was younger, I developed a compilator. And with this compilator, we could do everything. So the only thing we miss here to do everything, it's a language to do so. So at first we thought he was a bit crazy, because yeah, this was completely different from what we have been doing for over the years. And but he didn't stop there, and he started to do some researches, and he started to talk with some Italian guy making like papers on the DSLs, and he got in contact with Federico. And Federico didn't stop him. It told him, this is a good idea, and this is possible, we should do that with MPS. On the other side, there were other people that thought that this complexity should be like done better if we had like the wizard process pattern, like small steps to do the things more easily. And the main goal was then to give the business back to the business guy. So we spoke also with Marcus, that I think you all know because he just introduced us, and with Sergey, that has been talking, I think it was yesterday. And these guys helped us a lot to conceive the thing, because we were total newbies about this. But now we ended up with the solution. And the solution was to describe the business process through activities. This is the wizard thing. Then to be able to manage business data and documents that were like implied in the solutions, like that we like to call objects. Add this runtime parameterization to be able to customize the things, and to be able to have like lists and specificities, and describe the dashboard and the presentation easily. For all of these things, we did a language for the activity and the object. We did a language for the règlement, and another one that is linked very tightly to the first one for the templates and the indicators. And this would be called SIGI Nova. With this, we aim to achieve a linear complexity. So I will just talk quickly about every language before showing it to you. So the first language that we did, it was the activity. Activity are used to cut in chunks, and the first part of activities, was used to model the data. So the data is modeled through the objects, and these objects have properties that support inheritance and interfaces, because so what is happening behind the scene is, as soon as you describe an object, it immediately gets a collection in the Mongo database. So for us, it's very important to have unicity, and that everything is called the thing. Another feature of this language is, I think, something that Marcus mentioned in another talk, is wrappers. Wrappers for us they are very important because they add context to objects. To know a wrapper should be something that you can take, like, let's say, some kind of photo of an actual object and contextualize it. If, for example, you have like infractions, an infraction, you cannot contextualize it with like where it was done, or like which like play did that, but the wrapper does. And the wrapper would store the infraction itself, how much it should have been costing, and the details about the contextualization, that it was done like in Luxembourg and in Contern, and it was the 4th of February because the guy was badly parked. But wrapper could be either snapshotted, so keeping the information as it was when it was taken, or it also could be live. Live meaning that anytime that you would check the photo would be live, like with the later status. Actually, you cannot yeah, you cannot it's not the photo that is refreshing itself magically, but somehow the wrapper is like subscribing to the object, and when the object gets modified, the modification is like pushed to the actual wrapper. The activities themselves describe the processes and are used to notify the other people. So an activity is somehow something that someone can do in one go. It means you can do it in like without stopping. So we cut all the processes in small chunks and we call them activities. These activities are a series of steps. They have conditions, alternate steps that describe the nominal process of the daily work of our civil servants or even any people using the platform. The non-nominal step will be handled with conditions or alternate steps. I will be showing this in a few moments. And once an activity is complicated, it publishes news or notifications to tell the other one if this is changed through some job that I will talk about too. It notifies the guy that it's now his turn to do the job on this specific task. So to do this, the activities use verbs that are somehow actions that allow to interact with the objects. There is a golden rule in this framework, is that only activities are allowed to be modifying objects. The objects cannot be modified by external actions. So these actions, verbs, for language, they are either system or user. So the user action require a user like interaction at the runtime, and the system one can be run without any user specification. So these actions can also be restricted to certain object types. For example, it doesn't make sense to like upload something that is not a document. We also have post action that allows to do some post work after the activity is completed, like save them, like execute some function call, like delete something or assign some value to some other things. And we also have these technical activities that can be launched upon an event that comes. And these technical activities doesn't require a human input. Therefore, they can be only composed with these system actions. So we also have proxies to interact with external systems, because this framework is not limited to its own universe. It can be discussing with the rest of the world with functions that are listed in a catalog. So we import like swaggers for people that are familiar with APIs and swaggers. Through a swagger of any API, we import it, and the MPS/RCP resolves the types automatically, and then they are directly usable with execute. If, like this one in the sample, it returns a list, you can also directly select things in it and use it as a list directly. The complexity, like the authentication, the scheme, and everything, is not visible for the end user. It's absorbed into the whole process of the proxy. The proxy also does the conversion, if it's completely external, between the rest of the world objects and the digging of objects. So activities, if I have to get a summary, they are manipulating classes like design time things. But then comes a règlement. So règlement is the French word for rules or law, and it allows us to add runtime parameters and customizations. So it allows to transcribe and digitalize the law. That is a very big challenge nowadays. And while many activities are performed same way by most of the municipalities or most of the clients, there can be important differences between like entity-specific process. So I mentioned entities several times, so you can guess This is a tenantized environment where all the data is segregated between the different entities that are using the SIGI Nova. This reglement, allows also to scope and complete. So it is working like a tree, where we have the European reglement, then the national one, and then the communal one, and they like override each other to make the more precise definition for the given entity. If the given entity doesn't have a specific rule, then we take the national one. If it does, then we would take the specific one. It also helps to define the constraints and applicability, and this is the thing that that was for us important. It was to understand that in the end, the rules and the law, they are mostly just a set of constraints that we could describe somehow easily. Then the reglement is more than that, because this was the base idea, but then we ended up doing more with like validity periods. So it allows us to be able to be ready for a change of law with like preparing the changes. For example, with our old ERP, it was like complicated when in Luxembourg they legalized like the wedding with people of the same sex, because the whole thing was based on somehow the opposite. So it required like a lot of work. But with the SIGI Nova, it's just a change in the constraint, and then you publish the rule, and as soon as the law comes into effect, then everything is ready. We also can define jobs. So jobs are a sequence of activities. These activities could be like executed by different person, of course, but also in different entities. So natively with the jobs, we like make the bridge between the different entities, and this bridge allows us to have like this inter-entity like processes that crosses the barrier of the physical segregation of the data and of the people. Moreover, the people could be like in several municipalities or several entities. You could be like member of a syndicate and working for a ministry and be elected in some commune. There is nothing against that. And this thing also helps, allows us to handle this kind of situation that was very complicated before. The reglement also defined the document types, like the archiving patterns, and if the document should be saved in the blockchain. By the way, the blockchain, before we had the example of verbs, sign can put the document in the blockchain in the case that the document is like due to go to the blockchain, says the reglement. It also allows complex calculations like assignation for big pacts, so big regulatory thing that we have to calculate about like housings, about climate, and this big reporting can also be done through the reglement. Then the last but not the least, the last part would be the display with the model templates that allows us to say how the object should look like, and we show the object that have been created through these activities with thumbnails and details, search fields, of course, and you can launch like pre-initialized activities on an object or a part of an object if it has a list itself, and sub-templates would be like uniformizing the display of everything inside. Then in the end, it is like assembling Lego brick on a final portal. The indicators is a like recent addition to the language, and it allows us to add like graphics and filtering, KPIs, charts, dashboards, and more objectives to the functionalities of the language. The only small thing that is like extra in this is that you will aggregate the objects into facts, and these facts will be like pre-calculated to make the display faster. Now we'll go with like live demo of the language, that because I talked a lot about it already. Now it's time to show how it looks like. So we have, I will start with like the object. Object is the main thing that we have here, because it allows us to define the data we are like manipulating. And this object, there is a special of them that is an interface, which is an instance of this object that we directly reuse in the different behaviors of the object to make it once again more specific. That is what I was like talking about before. That you can see that, for example, in our case here, we don't see it here maybe, but yes, if our object is implementing our e-contract, that is a special type of object that we defined before, it is a contract object. And then if it is extending the GDPR data interface, then it will be something with a GDPR thing. Now I will show what is, for example, the employee object. This employee object with the GDPR data has several things. So it has these properties. Of course, we have different kind of things, and this GDPR user log. So as this object is a GDPR data, it has this key. So GDPR, I think it's a big thing nowadays that nobody can like ignore. So we handle it like by design. By putting this GDPR keys, this is the keys that allows us to identify that the manipulated data relates to the same person. And as soon as we have added this iGDPR data thing, we can choose for every property what GDPR category it is in. So this is all the like legal ones. This is okay, and this is it for objects. And I will now go to an activity. So activity is not, it's, you can remember, like we try to slice the complex tasks of the daily life of everyone to make it like small things that you can do in one go. So it is into steps, and these steps are quite fast. Usually you can do it in once. So you can do this select, like download, use all the verbs that we have been talking about before. Then it would be like an alternate scenario. This one is quite simple, but I can show a more complex one in a minute. And then this post action can save, news and notification can happen. I can also show other things like this. So these activities, at the end, they are regrouped in something that we call a service. So a service is just a series of activities that are manipulating the same objects in the end. And you can notice, I guess, that there is this publication button, like button here. These activities are publishable. I think I will be showing some other activity a bit more complex, because this here, if we go, for example, on, so back to the GDPR thing, as soon as an activity is manipulating sensitive or like personal data, it is directly flagged in the interface here, and here as well, but here with this here as like a sensitive information. By default, everything that happens here will be logged in the GDPR thing. So once again, the activities as hashtags for future use, like for like using it and knowing what it does somehow. A service for the like regroupment of things, manipulates some objects with their own typing. This condition I was talking about before with like the message when it's not the case. And for example, this one is like showing thing, assigning things, and then executing this proxy function we were talking about before. This proxy function in that very specific case allows us to communicate with the national registry that is like out of our like perimeter, but it is very easy here. Just execute the function like that, and the magic happens, absorbing the complexity of the thing and the token that are necessary to pull this registry. You have this news, so this news is happening in a feed and with some like fusion fields like formatting to be able to see what happens here. Then I will be showing also, I think that you could have been before seeing some steps where there is a small r here. So this small r like materializes the fact that a règlement is used. This last exercise of the pact would be defined in the règlement. Then we can directly go to the règlement that like define the things. So this would be like this one in that case here. Merde, c'est pas ça que je voulais faire. And then we also have some other thing with more complex règlement things that could be doing very nice things. For example, I can go, so this is the règlement for some police things. So you can see, as we were talking before, that it allows to define like archiving rules, the type of infractions. So defining like objects, like defining these merger things, like applicability to make special cases when something happens, defining like the type of the authorized value in a specific thing, and setting where the informations are coming from. You can also define like these jobs to like chain these activities in a sequential pattern to be able to go from one to the other, publishing notification to the next user that it should be validating thing. This job thing is exactly the same. You can choose the entities that you will like push forward to. Could be any entity that is available in the system and using the situation. We have like more complex calculations in the règlement as well. It is a bit slow for navigation. Sorry. So, for example, in the calculation of the pack climat, it's not very readable, I suspect, in the stream. But we are like making these complex calculation rules outside of the activities themselves, because if the process stays the same and just the calculation rules change, or a commune or whatever has a specific calculation, we will use the calculation that is the more adapted to this very specific situation. I will just go now on the templating to see how we see things in the final. So as I was saying before, so this is concerning an object, and so this one is a detail, it's a bad example, sorry. This is concerning an object and a service, because this group of activities will have a service, as we said. It's how it will have a menu point, like thumbnails, like informations, like details, like the activities that we are starting from an existing contract. So this activity that we have here is taking into a parameter this exercise that is a pack climat, and it will be passed the pack climat that we are on in the templates. If I go back here, you can see that you have other things, and you can be using like sub-templates as well. This sub-template is used to make detail of a building, for example, in that case, and then to show it means that in the pack climat we have a list of them, and then we want to show them individually and to be able to launch activity on them specifically, not on the full array of it, not just on a specific one. to be then able to gain a step, not to have to choose the thing. The last thing in the language that we have here would be also here, and this would be this indicator things. First of all, we have something that we call an indicator object. We define the filters that are somehow dimensions, how you build these objects. For example, this one are built from the consommation par climat for the bâtiment, and then the vehicles, it's built in some other way, and as soon like the different values that you have in it, and then when you have this indicator, you can do the display of it. Add it an icon, a description. The source is always our fact object. Some conditions that we will to filter the thing from the beginning, like if you can modify it on the portal, if how it's represented and how it's grouped and everything. And then all these things, they are summed up in a dashboard with categories and what of indicators you want to show. So you could see here, I'm showing both MPS and an RCP that we had. And this RCP looks exactly like MPS, but there is no possibility of editing the language. The language itself is published through plugins, and these plugins, when we have this continuous integration that that publishes the plugin, that is immediately available for every user to update. So I voluntarily did not update the last one, so you see how it looks like, just like a regular MPS plugin, and we can go from there. So the lesson that we learned from this situation, it's that with this we have like big productivity increase because it was easier to do everything with this. We gave the thing back to the business, and we have this RCP that is very rich with like type system, with like auto completion, which is MPS style. But on the cons, we have this RCP that is MPS style. It means that it is not very like user friendly for the business guys. It's complicated for them to get used to do it, and even if we try to do a very nice interface with it, it still looks like a bit of programming. Mostly when you looked at the table and the règlement, it looks a bit complex. So in the pros, it's very easy to deploy a language with the plugin. The activities are somehow self-documenting and both specific because they have the same like skeleton, and generic because they are fine-tuned at runtime by the règlement. And we can address with this kind of thing all the stakeholder at once, because the guy at the civil servant is happy with the Winter thing, like the guy, the elected guy is happy too, because he has the dashboard that he can customize himself, and everything is nice. And the guy, we have these report things, everyone is happy with the solution. On the cons, we still have the thing that it is complicated to update with the RCP itself. When we have a new version of MPS, we have to redeploy the complete part. Most of the time, the plugin is not compatible anymore. We have to make a new plugin. And of course, queries, build, and maps that are the kernel F operation. I think that the specialists that were looking at the presentation recognize kernel F in many places. And these builds and map and tables and queries, they are a bit complicated to like read. But in some points, in some cases, I think you are like stuck by using these things. And the last thing is that règlement is not as readable as expected. At the first, we were like hoping that we could like swallow, let's say, all the law, and then with the like calculate our règlement and use it directly. This was not actually possible. But what I wanted to show is, because this one was just about the language for now, and now I can show you how the things looks like in the portal. So I will start with the indicators. So this is the indicators we were having before. Sorry if I switch a bit rapidly. We have this consummation, evolution with the vehicle, building with a bar, a column, and this consummation thing. This repartition, so this, like, I don't know if it's in English, this number of cars, this number of equipments, and then the key indicator. And this is the categories that you find here. So everything here, of course, is dynamic and recalculated. We can change, remove the bâtiment thing because we are not interested in this anymore. So the calculation is now a bit slow, but it should not happen like that. Wait, shit. I think I lost the focus. Shit. No worries. I'll show the portal again. Okay, so this is the main page of our portal. I think it's a bit slow when I'm streaming at the same time. So our thing is the news feed here, the thing that is populated by the news of the different activities. Then in the things, we also have the different services that we could be talking about. As soon as we have inner services, we have the news feed of the actual service, not anymore of the whole portal. Then here you see that the objects that have already been created here, and these indicators that could have been done, I think in that case there are no, and then the activities that you could be launching here. Like launching an activity is like executing the code that we have been describing before. So in our case, the thing that is very important and I wanted to emphasize about is actually the fact that here the language is just a brick of the whole process. We made, I like to call it like a full stack development, business development platform that has 4 steps. This is the sleep architecture with the structure of it done in the MPS directly by language engineers. These language engineers, they package the language into plugins that are available for the business analyst scripter that uses the RCP directly, that transforms the business processes, is analyzing into templates, activities, contracts, services, reglement, and whatever. They are then published with a continuous integration mechanism into the portal here. And the portal speaks with this interpreter thing that at runtime accesses everything that is needed, compute the rules for the fluidity of the portal. Doing this, we also solve like the main concern of most of the organization using multiple entities is like this right management, because these activities, they are assigned to groups that are based for the notification things. And being assigned to groups like that, it allows to give back the user management in the hands of the, like, let's say, power users of the entity. We also talked about the fact that we could have this cross-entity things. And now that we did this thing, we noticed that we still have a few problems with like user experience, not the end user experience, because this one is handled, but the user experience for the business analyst people that are using the RCP. We would like to democratize this solution and to be able to have maybe a web editor. So I don't know if Federico is somewhere, but it's a call, Federico. And but SIGI is also open to like collaboration and evolution of the MPS web architecture if we can like take part into this solution, because we are like actually demanding it. And we are also, and this is something that is very important, we are also ready to share this experience and this full stack development and business development thing that we call SIGI Nova, And this Ziginova experience, we are ready to share it and collaborate with other public administrations to like make it real, like the collaboration between entities. This is what we managed to do for the Luxembourg now, and we would like to extend it if it's possible, if anyone is interested to collaborate with us. I think that's all for the presentation. I hope it was not too long or boring. I think I am I'm 3 minutes too fast. Is it bad, Marcus?
Yes, it's really bad. We have to now be quiet for 3 minutes and wait until the 45 minutes are over. So let's wait.
Okay.
All right. So thanks for the talk. Very interesting. Again, one of these systems where it's really great to see the whole chain, right? From language, structure, interpreter, runtime, web, lots of questions. So first, again, before I ask a question, everybody please like the video so we can hijack YouTube and, get everybody to see this. Second, just a quick comment from me about your comment regarding kernel F and complexity of map and builders and stuff like that. I absolutely see that, but you might consider replacing these with more end-user friendly notations, semantically doing the same thing but looking nicer.
Sure, but it was not a reproach. It was actually a fact. I was not reproaching it because kernel F helped us so much. We didn't have any solution to do that, and so it is, for me as a tech user, I find it fine. It's just for a business user, it's somehow complicated to cope with it.
Absolutely. And but my point was that the idea of kernel F is that those things that are useful one-to-one, you just keep them. But if you notice that certain concepts are too syntactically ugly or too complicated, you remove them from kernel F and add more domain-specific, more readable, nicer things for the end users. This was just a comment. It's not, because I've heard this from several customers, and that I just like to emphasize that. All right. So there's a question from Sophia. It's a two-part question. Do you have any GDPR compliance functionality? I think the answer is yes. We saw some of that, right?
Yes. The GDPR compliance is built in the actual framework. So this is something we took into account in the very early stages, because this is we are doing software for the municipalities where GDPR is a very big concern, and for us it was very important that the people can be confident in the solution we offer, and then the GDPR is something very important for them. So this is natively done. That's what I try to show in the object presentation.
Yeah, maybe she asked it before you showed it or something. I don't quite remember. But the follow-on question is, if yes, what structure did you use to implement it?
What do you mean? So we are flagging at first we defined this IGDPR data interface. Object inheriting this IGDPR data interface, they have this GDPR key, that is the key that we will be using to log the things that access it. And this is something I wanted to show and I somehow forgot. Then in the activities and in the templates and in anything that is showing the thing, in the actual export of the activity or the template, the place where the sensitive or personal information is manipulated / shown is flagged directly. And when the interpreter sees it, it logs it in the GDPR database with the treatment. And the treatment is the name of the activity. Then we have the Elasticsearch. That's where we store it to be anything. And then we can look for the whole thing. If you need some information, like people are asking, would it access my data and where was it shown in the last 7 weeks or whatever, it's very easy through the GDPR key that we have been using cross applications. Is it clear?
Of course. Actually, I was preparing questions. I didn't really listen, but I'm like, I have to do the moderating.
Okay.
So both Kemal and Nolly were asking around what was the effort, team size, how did you get all this done?
So I was trying to explain at the beginning, this was coming from some idea that I think we were like 8 or 10 at the beginning. So amongst the 8, there was 7 saying, no, it's not going to happen. And there is 1 saying it is going to happen. And then we started with it. We come with Federico. And then for the language development, I think there was 5 language people, then about like 20 developers, like for back and front, and then 50 business guys for the scripting that are starting with it. The platform, so if the question was about like the language and the framework itself, it was 5 language, 20 developers, and now we have this 50 guys using it and like 40 people like doing support for it.
Okay, that's substantial.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
So
yes. Because the more we advance with SIGINOVA, the more confident we are in it. At the beginning, it was some kind of experiment. It was not called SIGINOVA. It had a code name, like all the experiments. And the more we do it, the more it becomes nice. The more it becomes good, and then the more we can do with it. And that's why we started a bit smaller, and then we bigger and bigger and bigger. And now the people are using it, and we are producing applications somehow massively with it.
There's actually a question that relates exactly to that. By again, also Nolly, what's the release cycle, especially the first one? Did you produce an initial version with minimal features that you released, or did you wait for all features to be done before you released version 1?
So it was quite long at the beginning because we had to develop all the bricks, and it was like almost 2 years until we get to the fully functional first version, let's say, because we didn't have the MPS knowledge, we didn't have the RTP thing, so we were publishing directly from the MPS thing. So the language developers and the scripters were the same at the beginning. Then the interpreter, we were not really knowing how we were going to use it. We wanted to move out these proprietary technologies that were Oracle and Microsoft to go on more open source technologies. So we were like somehow noobs with these technologies as well. And we tried to use the containerization, so Dockers and Kubernetes as well. And we had to like discover on all of these things. So it took a lot of time before we managed to assemble the bricks, let's say.
Yeah, this
Almost
is also an experience that I'm seeing in various places, that you don't just change the way how you specify your system, meaning the DSL. You have a different way of executing it, interpreter. You have a completely different target environment, the browser, the cloud. So you have to learn all the Docker stuff, all the cloud infrastructure. And I see that with another customer right now. It's a lot of stuff if you take all of this together.
Yes. We didn't know at the beginning. We thought we were almost there all the time. But at the end, it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
But we are happy it's behind us,
Absolutely. But I still, there's more questions, but just from my side, I feel that you are still confident, or even more confident, that this is the right approach, because you are empowering the business people, which is exactly a promise of DSLs, right? So it's nice to hear that confirmed from somebody who is not an evangelist, let's say.
Yeah, because I was even a skeptic, I must confess, because at the beginning I said, yeah, this thing is nice. This guy, for most of the people, we IT guys, we are seen as nerds. And for us IT guys, we see these language people as even more nerds. And we didn't think something, I think it was like doctoring thing, and it was not going to happen. And I have to say that I'm every day like surprised and happy to say how it goes.
I mean, you had one big advantage in your context, which is your boss was already convinced, right?
So yeah, it was actually the one with management. Yes, it was the one with the small light bulb in the presentation.
Yeah. So more
That was his
questions.
idea.
Yeah, exactly. More questions. Again, since I didn't learn to read Cyrillic from yesterday, I have the same problem. I don't know how to pronounce the name. Is there any testing, any automatic testing engaged? Is testing integrated into the CI?
Yes, we have two levels of testings. We have this language level testing at the build level. So we are doing tests on the language, on the exports, and on trying to build a language every time we publish it. We check it in, sorry. So this continuous integration at the language level. And then we have this something that we call expert witness, that are a series of activity doing simple steps. And we know what should come back from these steps. And we have automated tests on every, let's say, every action and every like combination of action / object.
Mhm.
And if the simple bricks work, normally the whole wall should be standing. That's how we do the tests.
Okay. By the way, I did actually learn the Russian language by asking Google Translate. So the name is Vladislav. The next question is from Antonio. He asks, the dashboard is only to show charts and numbers, comma, but can it be used also to define models of your language?
For the moment, no. The thing maybe I forgot to mention in the demo is that we have these objective things that you can see trends and things, but no, not yet.
Okay. Wait, I gotta organize things here a little bit. Yes, again, Noli is asking, in the SLIP framework,
Yes.
only the S was created in MPS, or also the L and the I?
No. The S was creating in MPS. The L, that is like the RCP, was somehow created from MPS because this is the MPS sandbox. Actually, it's the sandbox with the read-only language. And then MPS stop at the publish mechanism. Publish is like serializing the AST to be like
XML
triggering. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the interpreter then is not part of MPS. We want it to be like, let's say, platform independent, just in case.
Right. And so I think the interpreter is Microsoft infrastructure, right?
Almost, yeah. It's .NET Core, so it's
Right, yeah.
not really in Microsoft because it's running on like Dockers and Linux. But
Yeah, okay.
yes.
And you're not generating the interpreter backbone from the language definition. I mean, you could maybe automate some of that, but you're not doing it. This is manually written based on the language structure.
Exactly. We had a big discussion with a guy called Marcus at some point, and
Yes.
and at the end we preferred to do the interpreter not generating from the language itself. I cannot say now if this was a good choice or not, but it is actually working. But yeah, maybe this is still somehow an open question, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, the drawback there, I imagine what this Marcus guy might have said back then, which is that you have to, of course, whenever you change the language in MPS, you have to manually make the corresponding change to the interpreter in terms of, which concepts are handled, how they're called and stuff like that. So there's a manual synchronization process going on.
Exactly. This is true. Therefore, we have like this versioning system that we publish the version with the activities, and the version of the language and the version of the interpreter are aligned. But anyway, we would have to fix the front end as well. So this is not a big drawback in the sense that we would have to fix the front end as well also, because the front end part, I don't think it could be generated from the language directly.
Yeah,
so yes and no. I'm yining you.
Right, exactly. Julian is asking, simple question. Does the DSL and the RCP allow a non-software engineer to change the Java code for any regulatory updates? And this Java is used downstream. This is not data entry to populate with data. I'm not 100% sure what he means, actually.
Yeah, me neither, because Julian, hello. For example, a non-software engineer would not be editing Java code, I would guess. But Anyway, no, we don't do that because in the RCP is really designed for the business guys, and the business guy, they care about business. They don't want to be knowing any Java things. But there is something important in the question, and is how we populate the data. So to answer this, we have,
data especially.
yes, you have two opportunities, let's say. Either the data is directly created from the framework upon the first usage of the activities. This is the, like, let's say, easy case. When there is no needed like extra data. And the second one is when the data is coming from an external system and we have to do some integration. This is like the second case. And this second case, we handle it with proxies mostly, and dedicated like one-shot import tool or conversion tools through the proxy thing. And this is how we handle the data initial load, because as soon as the initial load is done, then either you have to ask things like communicate through the proxy with the external system, and when it's like in the SIGI Nova framework, we don't need an external system anymore. We like make it live with the activities.
Yeah. Nolly is asking, by the way, she's, or I don't know actually if that's a male or I think it's a male name. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Right.
Can't see the picture. He or she is playing Federico in terms of the number of questions. So what's the onboarding process like for the developers with regards to the MPS training? Were they trained once and then left on their own? Or was some kind of MPS expert always available for support? How does this go?
For the developers?
Yes,
yes, for someone like me.
Like,
so,
for example, like you, yes.
Yes.
How were you feeling, Alex, during the process? What was your like emotional state?
Yeah, my emotions, they were mitigated, because when I discovered MPS, I thought this was like a crazy tool, but so complex to take over with this complicated concepts of different levels of abstraction that you have to think about to like be able to understand the fully possibilities of building your own language. And this is something that takes time. And in my opinion, despite the JetBrains things is very nicely done with a fast track, you cannot do by yourself. I think we had to use the help of Federico, that is coming in a few minutes, I guess, of Marcus and of Sergey especially. Lately, some other guys from Itemis helps us as well. For us, it's complicated to be like a profession, like on the language without the help of this dedicated people.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's often the case. Yeah, I mean, it's nice for certain people because it helps them make a living, but it's not a state that is desirable.
Yes.
It would be better if that were not the case. Last question from Nolly. He is asking, isn't it defeating the purpose of MPS or the idea of a DSL if you introduce an interpreter?
I would disagree with Nolly on this one, because a language is made to be used. So if it's used through the MPS interpreter of ours, I think it doesn't really make a difference. The important for us in MPS is being able to define and build the language properly.
Yeah, it is true that all the documentation of MPS and all kind of the tool, how it appears to people, makes it look like what you do with the language is you press the generate button and then you run the generated code. But it's not, I mean, we do lots of other ways, like with interpreters in the tool, outside the tool. So I agree with you. There's no relationship there as well at all.
Thank you, Marcus.
All right, so we're 1 minute late. I think Federico will be okay with that. Thank you very much, Alex. Very interesting talk. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Ciao.